Yeah. Hi, I'm Kristen Clark, and I'm here with another installment of College Planning Untangled, where we help families just simplify the college planning process because, guys, it shouldn't be that hard. And I'm here today with Jill Grimes. She is a medical doctor, and she has written a really amazing book that we're going to talk about today. It's called the College Student Health Handbook, and we've got that. But Jill, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me be part of this conversation.
Absolutely. And so Jill, you and I've talked about this. I'm a mom of two boys, sent them off to college, and I am so disappointed that I did not have this, not only for my kiddos, but for all their friends, because I tell you, I would have been giving this book out as a gift to every stinking one of them, because it's that good.
Well, I really appreciate that. And all I can say is I wish I had it done when our first went off to college also. But if I had had it done on time before our girls went off to college, then our younger one, who is an animator, would not have been able to illustrate it. And her name's on the cover too.
Yes, no, I love that. No, I love that you kept it in the family.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to talk to parents about is number one, we've got graduations going on right now, and we've both been through this, time or two. And, what you don't know as a parent is you think you've done all the things, right, to get them prepared and launched. And the closer it gets to that date, you keep doing the, oh, and I forgot to tell you, oh, and I got to tell you this, and oh, I got to tell you this. What I love about your book is that, and of course the mowers are coming by. They always do, right, when I start this, right? But the what I love about this book is you don't have to handle any of the medical stuff because it's all in here. You can take that off your list, hand them the book, and you're good to go on that. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, talk to me a little bit about what got you excited about writing this book, because this is a big undertaking.
It is. And so I'll tell you exactly what happened. So about now getting close to 12 or 13 years ago, my next door neighbor, who is our babysitter, her name is Elise, she was headed off to college because our girls were little, she's 8 years older than them or whatever, just headed off to college. And her mom said, what is Elise going to do without Dr. Jill next door? And I said, oh, don't worry, I've got this covered. I'm going to make her the world's best college first aid kit. Because as a family physician, I know what to put in there. So I made this great kit, if I can say so myself. I'm very crafty. I was a Girl Scout leader and I love decorating. So I made this beautiful kit that had everything in it. I was really proud of it. And I took it over there and ta-da, gave it to her. And her mom's like, it's really cute. But she didn't know how to use any of this stuff. And so and she goes, Jill, you gotta include some notes. So she goes in the kitchen, grabs an index card, comes back, and she's like, hands it to me with a pen. She goes, okay, start writing. Tell her when to take Tylenol versus Advil. Which cream is it that goes on a rash? And she fired off about 10 questions, cramming it in on this little index card. And that was the first one I ever made.
And Jill, I will tell you, I still don't know if I truly know Tylenol versus Advil. I mean, really, I mean, I love that she had you do that.
Yeah, well, exactly. And that's the thing, antihistamine versus decongestant. Lots of adults don't know when to take which. And that's why there's so many of these combination products out there, but then you deal with side effects. So I always like the single ones. But so I thank you for validating that. So anyway, I started making these, and our girls, as they got older, obviously, and then they were in high school, and then their friends were graduating, and they were on a dance team, so they had a lot of friends that were older. I started making these first aid kits, and here I have one sitting right next to me. Like this. I don't sell the first aid kits. Let's see here. There it is in the picture.
Yes.
You can make your own. One of my conditions of writing this book with the publisher was that that one index card grew into a 21-page laminated booklet, which took, it was a big process. It would take me weeks to do this whole big assembly thing and put these together. Anyway, but I told the publisher, it's really important to me that I have the shopping list for what the ingredients are for this college first aid kit, because there's some on the market out there, but they'll say they have 100 things, but 40 of them are different Band-Aids, and they're not even the good Band-Aids. And that's the first thing. You want good Band-Aids, meaning the ones
You want good Band-Aids. I agree.
No cheapies. So lots of things you can go cheap. You can go cheap on generic Tylenol and Advil, but you want the good Band-Aids. So anyway, so the list is in there. There's literally a shopping list in the back bonus section. And plus my cheat notes that had been in that laminated booklet, there is right in that same do-it-yourself first aid kit section, right after the shopping list, there's all the cheat notes of when to take what and who needs what when.
Oh, see, I missed that. I'm so glad you told me about that. That's awesome. Well, and here's the other thing that I really appreciate about the book. A lot of times you get these and it's so hard to find the information that you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just calling mom. Okay. Number one, we know that they're in this age that they would much rather kind of figure it out. They want to figure it out. And I know when they don't feel good, it does feel good for them to call mom, and it feels good for us too. But Jill, there are some things that are a little bit more just, stuff that you're like, oh, I wish I could read and not have to ask somebody because it's embarrassing. Right. Like one of the things that you put in here that I love is a lost tampon. and I was like, yes, I mean, that's not something you want to call somebody and go, man, I think I don't know what I did,
Oh, it's the missing tampon. And it's a real thing. And it happens.
Yes.
I'm laughing about it because it's funny to talk about. It is not funny if that is you. And it's embarrassing for them to go to the doctor. And so simply knowing, one, they might be able to fix it themselves. And we say how to do that. But two, just going in and having it taken out, because in this particular instance, it's something that's extremely embarrassing. You had two boys, but I'm sure they had plenty of girls around them. But, you don't want to talk about it. And yes, so that's the kind of thing that's there. And I will tell you, parents are going to ask me all the time, they're like, well, yeah, is my kid really going to look at this? Because they're just going to Google it. And you know what? Yep, they are. But they're going to Google chest pain, or they say they have their first migraine headache. They're going to Google severe headache at 2 a.m. And you know what Dr. Google's going to tell them? That they have a brain tumor.
Yes.
You have to say that. And although I do address what's the worst case scenario this could be, or what's the worst case if you do nothing, I try and keep it very calm and in perspective. And there's a few things, I try to mostly include common things. I had over 100 things I wanted to put in the book, but publisher made us cut it down. So there's 60 in the second edition. There were 50 in the first edition. I'm going to ooch it up each edition, but to get all those 100 in at least. But, I tried to include the most common things that we see, the things that I know kids don't know, or that they don't know. A few things that are very serious. They're not common, but we still see them a few times a semester, and they might be life-threatening. So I included a couple things like that in there too, not to scare anyone, but because they're real and they need to know that you shouldn't ignore certain symptoms.
Yeah. Well, and I started a comment, and then my arranger brain went off to other things. But what I love about this is your headings: head, brain, eyes, ears, nose. I mean, you go, my stomach hurts. Yay, go to stomach. I mean, it's just so simple to find. So I loved that. And I also love, like you said, you give worst case scenarios, but you also give, this is kind of what it looks like. If you think this is you, here's when you need to go to the doctor. Here's how you prevent it, which
next time.
Yeah. Well, and and some of those, it's really good medical advice. And some of those it's okay, you got a hangover because you drank too much, So, I mean, it's really, it just fits. It's good for this age. And quite honestly, like I just had my appendix out a few weeks ago and I grabbed the book. I was like, I don't know, this is where it hurts. And you had it in here. Yep. And,
and it's good for all adults.
It is, but it's just so simple to use.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
It's not a sit down and read it book, although a lot of parents sending their first kid off to college, frankly, to sit down and read it. And that's fine, because, when you get that late night text because they're having test anxiety, maybe it's not a medical thing. It's they can't sleep, they have test anxiety, whatever. You're going to remember a good source for it. And you're going to have questions to ask them, and you're not just going to feed them the answer. You're going to help them through it, help them work through it, and help them find those answers for themselves.
Well, you did kind of remind me of something I was thinking about when I was thinking about what we were going to talk about today. And that is, don't just get one of these for the kid, get one for the parent too, because to be able to go to this and just know that you're, have the info is huge to me.
And because I will say there is actually an ebook edition too that's $2. On Amazon. And so, whatever format you like. I like holding a book.
I do too. I was going to say that.
Texture of a book. I like being able to flip to it. I earmark things. So I like the book. But
and not for nothing, Jill, you made me think of something like when for my appendix, I'd probably write a date in here that it happened, because you forget that stuff too. That
is a great idea. Yeah. Speaking of dates, if I can just throw out a free tip to the parents right now, please take a picture of their immunization card, most especially when they got their last tetanus shot. That is something, even though, you fill these things out and you're like, well, the school has it, but one, they may not go to the school clinic. And two, even at the school clinic, because I was at one for many years, we don't necessarily get everything that you submitted. So we might have their last flu shot, but we might not know when their last tetanus shot was. We might only have the requirements to get in, like in Texas schools, we require the pneumonia vaccine, for example. And so please take a picture of that. They need to take a picture you should have one too, actually, but everyone should do this, but take a picture and have it favorited on your phone. Same thing with your insurance card, front and back. That way, if you can't find the card, or you can't reach mom, or you don't want to call them at 2 a.m. or text and freak them out,
you've got it. Yeah.
Get it on there.
And, my precious younger son would always give him the insurance card from like 3 years ago. We're like, throw it away. So they need a current
car insurance,
current card. And they need to understand, though, why it's important, because that's what we figured out. We're like, well, we haven't explained to him that this changes. And then it throws everybody into a tizzy when that happens. So good advice.
Certainly does.
Yes. So there were a few other things that you had on the back of the book that I think are awesome for just people to understand better about the book. So, that the few things, and we probably covered some of these, but, to decide, you walk them through to decide if and when they need to seek medical help, or if they can just lay low and, take a nap and be okay. To know what to expect when you get there. Talk more about that.
That is like when you have, say, a really bad sore throat, and you go to your health clinic, and one of the things they might ask you is if you're sexually active. If you are, or if you're not, or that can be a very stressful and awkward question that you think is completely irrelevant. What does it matter? I am here for my throat. Well, it turns out actually throats can catch sexually transmittable infections if mouths have been on genitals. So, which happens, that's a normal thing. So just even knowing something like that, or knowing, okay, they're going to swab my, most kids, we've all been tested for strep, right? They know that there's a swab for that, but maybe they don't know what's going to happen if, say, they think that they have a sexually transmittable infection, and they think, well, I'm not going in because I've never had a pelvic exam, using a girl or a guy. I don't want them touching
my junk. Yep.
And it turns out you can just pee in a cup for a lot of things. So, yeah, I want to set expectations and lower whatever anxiety I can lower on the front end. It's going to make
Jill, you're so good at that in the book. I mean, it's just the no judgment zone for sure, where you just make this stuff normal, Hey, Lisa. Yeah, definitely chime in if you've got any questions about this. You might need this for Braden and all of his fraternity brothers. Yeah. Yep. So, and that was one of the things that absolutely stood out in this book for me, is that I keep wanting to show it so people can see it, that it is no judgment, and all this stuff's normal,
Right. And I want to say, what I have gotten more text, phone calls, messages, even a few old-fashioned letters about is the section about pot. Because, and I titled it "What You May Not Know About Pot" or something like that, uh, because there's a lot of pot. And okay, you and I happen to be in Texas. I realize people can be watching from all over. In Texas, pot is not legal. And a lot of parents erroneously believe that because it's not legal, that their kid's not going to be exposed to it. They're like, oh no, my kid doesn't smoke pot. That's just not a thing. Let me just tell you, it's a thing, and it's a thing on every college campus. And now a third of students happily choose not to smoke pot. A third choose not to drink, a third choose not to have sex. And that's their choice, and they're happy with that. And it's all good. And a third do some of those things responsibly, and a third do it all. And, a smaller percentage do it all really irresponsibly. So, but it's out there, it's really common. And there's just a few things that you need to know. And, starting with, it's not your parents' pot. And I try and make things, as lighthearted as I can, but everyone kind of gets that. They're like, well, what do you mean? Like, well, number one, the THC, which is the part that makes you high, right? The concentrations of those back when parent generation was going to college was like 5%. Now it's routinely 15 and up to 30%. Okay. And while that percentage doesn't always directly equal the amount of high that you get, it does in edibles, by the way, but not in meaning pot, but in brownies or gummies or gummy bears, things like that. But inhaled, it's not necessarily a direct correlation. But the point is, it might be much stronger than you think. And another thing is, I always say, if you didn't grow it, you don't know what's in it. And what I mean by that, it's not to go plant your own, it's not, I'm not advocating that. What I'm saying is, in states where it's illegal, you're obviously getting the pot from an illegal drug dealer. Now, that illegal drug dealer doesn't look like a shady man in a coat in the corner. It looks like your frat brother or sorority sister or church friend. Okay. I'm not judging any of those. It is more common in the Greek system. So I'll call them out a little bit on it, but so it doesn't look scary. It's coming from someone that looks like you.
Someone you trust, right?
Right. But remember, it is an illegal drug dealer, regardless of what they look like. And pot is sold by weight. So they put things in it to make it weigh more. So like sand particles or crushed glass particles. And think about inhaling that and how bad that is for your lungs. No one would, knowingly do that, right? But worse than that is something called wet weed, which every emergency room or urgent care doctor knows about. And that means that it's not just pot in there. And so they put additives in to make it seem stronger, right? To get them a better reputation, they'll sell more. And that additive might be formaldehyde. Yeah, the thing we pickle frogs in, formaldehyde, not good for your brain or any other organ. And, or it could be LSD, acid. And we see a lot of that. And, and I'm self-selecting for bad outcomes that I have seen, sure. But it's common. And I promise you, if you ask any emergency room or urgent care doctor about it, they've seen it, because when people get on these bad trips, because they think they've just had pot and they thought like pleasant little happiness and a little bit of munchies, right? And instead they're having very scary hallucinations or severely paranoid, or it can kick off a manic episode that won't go away. I mean, there's a lot of bad outcomes that can come from that.
And Jill, I can tell you, being a parent and growing up in the, let's say 80s, 90s-ish area, that you're right. Even as parents, sometimes we're like, it's not that big of a deal, because just your point.
XYZ, they did it some, it wasn't that big of a deal.
Right.
It's like, it's not addictive. Well, for 5 out of 6, it's not addictive. 1 out of 6 adolescents, it is addictive. But, it's what you're self-selecting for. So I'm not blanket, I try really hard not to say, look, pot is bad. I'm not a fan of pot, because I see the bad outcomes, and because a lot of college students are choosing it they're really just self-medicating with alcohol, self-medicating with pot to calm down their anxiety, usually social anxieties. And the problem is that pot is not actually good for that. In the short term, in the immediate effect, yes, it might decrease your anxiety, the alcohol, pot, you name it, right? But long term, next day, moving forward, et cetera, it actually increases your anxiety and paranoia in most people. And so anyway, so we just need to have these conversations, and I try and keep it on a very conversational tone, just like this. This is, you've looked at the book. This is the book. Hopefully, reads exactly how I talk. That's how I wrote it. But those are the kind of things that you may not know as a parent, and certainly that your college student or soon to be college student may not know, but they really need to know.
Yes. And, go back to the beauty of this book is that it is written in a way that is non-judgmental. It's so easy to find what you're looking for in here as far as what could be going wrong medically with you and your body and all that good, or your roommate.
Right.
And it addresses things like hangovers and, some of the common stuff that you're like, for kids that are just going off to college, this is new stuff.
Right.
So,
exactly.
yeah.
And if your kid is the quintessential good kid, I mean, truly, there's a lot of parents who think their kid is the good kid and really they're the party kid. But I just want to say, if your kid is that one that always is the one that's the designated driver and always taken care of, I wrote this book for them too, because I want a lot of things. One, I want them to understand that they are not responsible for everybody else. It's great that they want to help others, but they need to know the limits of their care. And I want to be sure they know that whole, when do you need to get in and see a doctor, when you need to take somebody in, and not try and take care of it themselves, because those kids put a lot of pressure on themselves that, we're just going to handle it. They say they don't have the money to go. They don't, there's 30 reasons why they don't want to go seek help. And I don't want them to feel that pressure. So that's one of the things that I talk about in there too.
Yes. And I am going to put your web address in the chat too, so that people that come later, and even though it's written on the screen, you guys will see on the scroll, you've got both my email address, or I'm sorry, my web address as well as Jill's. Definitely go check out jillgrimesmd.com. You can get the book. I Googled it before the show, and you can get the book anywhere. There are so many things that popped up. So you've got a great opportunity to get the book. And I'm going to go back to, don't just get one for every grad and their parents. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so here's several parents have told me this. I've written other books. This is not my first book. And my first book was actually called Seductive Delusions, How Everyday People Catch STDs. Gotta love that, right?
Yeah.
Starting with that, and now with this book, I have so many parents tell me, yeah, I gifted it to my nephew, my godson, my kid, and I opened it up and I just slipped a little $20 bill, fresh $20 bill in 2 or 3 sections to be sure that they would read those.
Oh, there you go. I love that.
A little extra incentive.
Awesome. Good point. All right, Jill, thank you so much for coming on. I told Jill beforehand, I want to get her information on my website as well, so that, people can get to it in as many spots as they possibly can. So feel free to check out collegeplanninguntangled.com as well.
Yes, obviously your services are tremendously needed. We all know how expensive college is, and emotionally expensive, and just straight up pocketbook expensive. And here's our help right here to help get your kid going a little straighter rather than this big crooked change major 6 times way.
Yes. Nope. I appreciate that. All right. Have a good one. And thanks.
All right. Thanks so much.